Some of the local responsibilities of the local school systems. We're going to go back. We're teamwork here. Is that they need to train students and parents on relationship violence, unhealthy relationships, and ways to prevent those incidents from occurring there. Promptly inform the center of any critical life-threatening incidents on our school grounds. Again, we've already talked about the need for the action review and evaluation there. And again, we would sit down with the first responders and a report has to be filed. So those are some of the responsibilities of the local school system. The legislature was very bold in prohibiting access by way of Public Information Act, filings. The safety evaluations, every public school starting next school year will have to conduct a school safety evaluation. We're currently working on the format for those safety evaluations. School emergency plans, every school, MSBoE, that's been a strong requirement. Every public school has to have a comprehensive school safety emergency plan. That has not changed. And any emergency response policy, as well as the guidelines for school resource officers and supplemental coverage, those are sort of off limits in terms of having the public get access to that. One of the other things we need to work with in the area of school resource officers, there's a misunderstanding of the legislation. Public schools this year at the high school level and in the out years are not required to have a designated assigned school resource officer to those schools. What they are required to do, if they do not have an SRO at the high school level this year, is to develop a adequate coverage law enforcement plan that will be submitted to the Center for Review and Comment. So they will work with their local law enforcement community, the police chiefs and sheriffs, to develop those adequate law enforcement plans in the event that a high school does not have a full-time SRO. Those same plans will have to be required to be filed next year at the elementary and the middle school level, again, if an SRO is not assigned full-time there. So these are some of the deadlines we've talked about. The curriculum has already been developed. The model policy will meet our deadline there. In October, we have to submit the school's summary of the SRO coverage and those adequate coverage reports there. A big requirement is in December. Working with a variety of stakeholders, we really have to report back on the state of behavioral health services to school-aged children to the governor and the General Assembly, as well as those potential gaps. So that's a big part of the law, to really dig our teeth into where we are with behavioral mental health services for our schools and our school communities there. And again, some other reporting data back on the SROs and what that looks like there. March of 2019 to submit a model SRO and school security training curriculum. We've done that. That's when we'll actually be delivering the training. Our goal is to work with the chiefs and sheriffs and the superintendents to provide that training free of charge. Certainly the local chiefs and sheriffs can implement their own training as long as it's in sync with the approved SRO curriculum there. And then in December of 2020, we again need to report to the Governor and General Assembly on data collected on the use of force involving school resource officers and any other school security employee, and that's a component of the law as well. So again, the key thing is by September of this year, every local school system needs to appoint that mental health services coordinator as well as the school safety coordinator, and many of our local school districts have done that in advance there. So these are just some other targeted deadlines. As you can see, the legislature was not very kind in terms of the timeliness of the deadline. So we've been running full speed ahead, working with a lot of partners out there, including John Willems of BABE and Pazam Renee Spence. So we welcome all the partners we can to really help us out there. There is a deadline for higher education for the first time at the higher education level beginning this year, that they will have to practice at least one active shooter drill. And there are some other opportunities in the law where we'll be working with local school systems to develop option-based responses to a critical incident. So we just won't focus on a school lockdown. Now we have to develop different options. It may be run, hide, fight, avoid, deny, defend. And the majority of our local school systems are going to that sort of blended model or that hybrid model where one size doesn't fit all and there are options. So again, we want to partner with the local school systems and make sure that we develop that training in an age-appropriate way through K through 12, not only for staff but for our students, that we don't increase the anxiety of participating in those very challenging active shooter drills throughout the school year coming forward there. Again, SROs are not required in every school, and our school security employees do not have separate training. They can take the same training that our current SROs do. Again, progress, we've hit some of our milestones. Working with Gabe Rose back there, who is the project manager for Dr. Salmon and MSDE. We have weekly status calls. We know we have tight deadlines, and we're on task to meet those deadlines there. So I'm sure this time we can take any questions. There's a lot of information in that legislation, a lot of requirements, and I think it really puts Maryland on the map moving forward as being one of the more proactive states in the area of school safety and security. One thing I just want to underscore, having been involved significantly at the crisis and tragedy at Great Mills High School, where we lost a student to an act of violence, the more that we can all do collectively for whatever positions that we hold as a community member or an employee of the state or the county in the area of prevention, preparedness, and intervention is where we need to be as a state. I will tell you firsthand, coming through the backside of recovery is a daunting challenge. We know that some people, because of those traumatic incidents, may never recover from those events. So the more that we all can do collectively, working together, rolling up our sleeves on the front end, that's where we need to be, and I think our state has done an outstanding job of driving us on that front end. We still have to pay attention to the recovery piece, but the more that we can do in that upfront areas will really save lives and allow us to move forward in the state of Maryland. So at this time, any questions that you may have, we'll try to respond. And thank you, Dr. Salmon, for the assistance here.
Anytime.
That's very, very well said. You know, the point at which a school resource officer or other school official has to put into practice their active shooter training, the system's already failed on multiple levels. And goodness knows we hope we could take that lesson and implement it by everybody in the system, and your guidance is terrific. Are there questions or comments?
That was an excellent, important, and valuable presentation, so thank you for that. Comment I have is really for board members. It's not a question for Ed. It's awful that it took a school shooting to trigger all of this activity, but if you listen closely to this presentation, there were a great many shoulds and musts and statewides in it. There was very little local control in it. There was a statewide curriculum for school resource officers. There were a great many requirements and obligations on all districts and all schools. We heard very little about local control in this presentation. It's awful that it took a shooting to make the state sort of pay this attention. It's a pity, I think, that 35% proficiency doesn't produce the same kind of crisis reaction on the part of the state.
Dr. Guyton,